I was just in a loop. Okay, so I'll try it again. Hello, I'm Adrienne C. Smith, the founder of the Can Diversity Collective. And we are here at the end of the day, at the end of our 3-day session to close out an amazing virtual panel, speakers, thought leadership, everything you want to call it. And we're going to end it in the best way with some of the folks who are my closest, dearest friends, Rob Smith and Zeke Thomas. That's a joke between Zeke and I, because I'm like, what? We did a panel together last year, but there's nothing but love here for us. So, on that note, this panel is super exciting for me. It's called Don't Watch the Rainbow. And as we are talking about being fully transparent and honoring people who are being their true, authentic selves in the space of inclusion and belonging, and not trivializing and checking boxes and just waving a flag for the sake of it, we're going to dig deeper into this conversation. We've got my exciting partner, Laura, who is going to lead the conversation with Rob and Zeke, and hopefully Rashad will be joining the conversation soon. So get ready, because it's going to be spirited and good and informative. I'm going to step out, and Laura, I'm going to let you take it away. Have a great panel, guys.
Hey, everybody. We cannot believe that we have finally gotten to the end of the 3 days. There's Rob. I think we got his video. It'll work. Give it a second. But we are so excited to end on this fantastic note. First of all, happy Pride for everyone out there watching today. And we'll kick this off with Zeke. Introduce yourself.
Hey, thank you for having me. Of course, I'm Zeke Thomas, Joshua Zeke Thomas. I am a DJ and host and activist. I really specialize and I'm really passionate about the work I do around mental health and men's mental health, to be specific. I'm also a chief marketing officer at Isaiah International. Have a champagne company called Cheurlin Champagne, and One World Pharma, specializing in cannabis and hemp. So busy and excited, but thrilled to be here.
Awesome. We're so happy to have you here, Zeke. And how about you, Rob? Why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay. Well, hey, y'all. My name is Rob Smith. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I am, among many things, a husband, a son, a friend, a mentor, entrepreneur, a yogi. I also founded a company called the Phluid Project, which is a retail brand that defies gender norms and expectations, and kind of a liberation movement that we can express ourselves however we want. That gender binaries don't really work anymore, and it's just a social construct that's dated. Also, so we're in 5,000 stores right now, which is super exciting across the country, and launching international this fall. Also have an education platform called Get Phluid, Gender Expansive Training, helping companies get ready for gender expansive and gender expressive workforce and consumers. And most recently launched the Phluid Foundation, which is a nonprofit which supports some of the most marginalized and underrepresented of the LGBTQIA plus community, which are trans women of color and homeless queer youth. So putting some money, making some money, and putting it into the community that does the hard work.
Awesome. Just a few things that you're up to these days, Rob. Just a few.
Not as busy as Zeke, apparently.
Well, it's interesting. We've been, we're a year into being into the COVID pandemic. It's also been a massive year of unrest. So I think the first one I want to ask is, like, how are you guys? Like, how has it been for you? It's been stressful. Zeke, you're talking about mental health. Like, how have you been able to navigate this past year?
This past year has definitely been tough. It's definitely been a year of really looking inward to me. I experienced a lot of loss quickly that I wasn't expecting, and that I think we all weren't expecting when we talk about loss, whether that's something in the physical, in your space, having to lose an apartment, or even, emotional, having to lose a family member, something like that, dealing with this virus. I, ended up in my parents' basement, and reliving love from mom and dad, but also, conflicts and getting back into old habits and old quarrels and settling things, so to speak. Now, myself being 30 and then now being 30 years my senior, it's interesting that we both got the love and time that we needed in coronavirus. And my sister had coronavirus and still is having recurring issues because of it. But I'm very thankful for it in a sense, because it really gave me selfishly time that I needed to complete my journey to continue to better myself.
Thanks for sharing, Zeke. And for you, Rob, how about you? How's this year been?
Thanks for sharing, Zeke. And thanks for asking, Laura. I think sometimes we forget to ask, lately, and to me, the year started on March 13th. That's about the time the year started. And so, for me, it was the beginning was a time of loss. I lost the store, which was kind of like, as Zeke knows, it was an extension of me and the community and this manifestation of this idea that I had brought to life, and lost that, and then started to kind of rebound and then lost everything, and was just struggling financially to survive, and struggling to stay healthy, and but it was also a year of complete transformation, time to stop and pause and reconsider my life and what I was doing with it, and pivoted the brand, but also spend more time with my husband, spend less time running around, chasing things that weren't fulfilling, and just had time to just be with, a small group of people and spend really quality time. And I just feel coming out of the COVID, just deeply grateful, and every day living in a state of abundance and gratitude. And I think COVID time really just allowed me to do a big reset on who I am.
Yeah, I know it, and it's funny. Like I always ask at the beginning of most panels, because I think we have to free our kind of basic humanity kind of went out the window, because we're all stuck together this past year, all staying at home. And now as we come out of it, this is still hard. This is not going to be. It's not going to be easy for anyone. And so thank you both for sharing, because I think the more that we normalize it, like just how are you, the better off we're all going to be. Just because we all have a sort of collective grief we've had to go through, and so the more that we share and empathize, the better off we'll all be. And so diving into that a little bit. So now we're in Pride and we're seeing rainbows everywhere. And we all know that there's this thing called, rainbow washing. What are brands getting right at this moment to connect with the LGBTQIA plus community?
You want me to go first? I'll go
Sure,
first.
go for it.
Yeah.
You're the one with the long resume.
What I think is, and I'm glad to be a part of it, and I've been asking this since last year, but really that companies who've allocated money for parades, marches, whatever they want to call it, and spend money at parties, that this is a great opportunity for reset also for corporations to reallocate money towards education internally, so they understand the LGBTQIA plus community, specifically the new emergence, I guess, of non-binary and trans folks who have always been there, but have not been comfortable coming out at work as transgender and non-binary, and what do they do internally to, create policies and language and education to be inclusive and affirming of this community. We did it 30 years ago with lesbian and gay folks and have made great progress. And now it's time to shift from who we go to bed with and now focus on who we go to bed as a new group of people that we're working to create space for. And I also think taking money that was allocated for big public shows and put it back into the community, make donations, give to the community that, you're building your brand on and putting a flag in your window on your website. Give back to the community that, it's not all rainbows and sparkles and glitter and unicorns and tell people there's a lot of suffering that exists by being queer. And yes, it's a great time to pause and celebrate and say, I'm so far, we've come so far and we have so much to celebrate, but we still have a lot of folks like trans women of color who live to be 35 years old. The life expectancy in the United States, 35 years old, there's a lot of work for us to do for the entire LGBTQIA plus community. So yeah, just so who's doing it right? Companies that are giving back to the queer community, companies that are educating their teams on being inclusive and investing in diversity and inclusion, and also companies that are buying from lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, intersex companies that are owned by owners and supporting owners of queer-owned companies. So those are the people getting it right.
Oh, cool. And Zeke, what are you seeing on your side as a CMO?
On my side, what I'm seeing, companies have definitely gotten down in terms of the branding, the color scheme. They've even started working, I guess, with the right influencers. They're making a lot more calculated right decisions, but are they still, as Rob said, authentic decisions when you're not doing the education to back that up internally? But I'm optimistic still, but as a classified Black person, that's all I have to be.
Yeah, well, yes, exactly. We have to be optimistic. But so so thinking about that, like, they're making these choices, but like, what should they not be doing it? Because we know, don't put the flag on there, but it seems as if that, everyone, it's kind of like when you've had the black square when it was last summer, or the unfortunate yellow square when it was Stop Asian Hate. What are the things that they should not be doing in order to embrace the community?
I think one of the main things that you have to resist the urge to do is pandering or even baiting per se. Like you're directly targeting a Zach. I'm just going to take Zac Efron per se is going to be in this new ad for X company. Why? Because the gay men will love him. Well, that's targeting. That's not really authentic. Why didn't you, go get Joey, who looked good off the street on 57th Street, and he's actually queer and whatever. So don't do that. But you still see a lot of that, as I think you're reverting now to a culture that is so scared of being canceled that why not just be safe? Zac Efron's safe.
And he's also skinny. So skinny. Oh my God. We did an event with him once and I was like, dude, eat a sandwich. But yeah, it is this sort of blend of like, okay, we don't want to tick off everybody. So the default safe option is a straight white male who could appeal to what they think is the largest population of gay men, not realizing that it's a vast, beautiful rainbow of people who are who could be attracted. So and Rob, what do you think?
Really,
go ahead.
And just to go at you or back at you, or it's really even the sense of, okay, why won't you open the tent for more colors? Why won't you allow diversity in the ads? And if that is the main reason of just to be safe per se, we're really doing a bad job at advancing, the narrative of, whether that is, body dysmorphia or any things that you're pointing to that is wrong in terms of culture. If we're going to go backwards, that's a scary thought.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. And Rob, want to jump in?
Yeah, I think it's, I like to think about when working in a campaign, I like to think about as people enter the campaign with intention. Like, what is your intention to do this? Is your intention to, to get more eyeballs on your brand, or is your intention to enter a space with authenticity and integrity? And I think to do that, you need to pull folks to the table and say, how are we going to do this? From folks from the community. I'm going to use an example. I think it's a pretty good one. I just done a lot of press for Saxoff 5th came to Phluid and said, hey, we want to do something around for Pride. And so I showed them the product. They loved the product. But I said, but there's more. And if you want to know what, and they said, yes, please tell me. So we helped them cast the models for the campaign, showing the wide spectrum of the community. We let the models dress themselves. We had queer folks doing hair and makeup and on the other side of the camera. And then we went in and we did an education campaign, and we started internally educating and then working on externally campaigning. And then they're going to work on, you know, they're donating 100% of their sales, 100% to the Phluid Foundation. I mean, that's not like a small number, that's a big number. And they're really committing to giving back to the community. And then they're going to have a job fair to help hire the folks from the community that they're, and so that to me is a campaign from beginning to end that's authentic and has integrity. And I think it needs to be more of that, more thoughtfulness to really go into a campaign and think about it from every angle.
It's really pulling every single piece of this together, because I think oftentimes, you know, as Zeke was saying, they go the safe route. And it's really awesome to see that Saks Off Fifth was like, well, actually, we need to take this one step further. That we have to go a little. It's just like a conversation we've been having all week long. That this has to go one level deeper, because you've got to go within the trenches within the organization as well in order to actually make some meaningful and lasting change. So,
and can I say, or if you don't have it inside the company, then go outside the company. You know, because so many times we look in and we think, oh, the point of view of the queer community is our employees who are of the community, but probably are white gay men who are, you know, as one myself, are not educated and not speaking on behalf of the entire queer community. So there's lots of different voices to be filled when speaking about the queer community, because, you know, each of us has our story and but doesn't fully represent the entire LGBTQIA plus 2S, you know, community. The letters continue to grow because we're such a diverse, broad community that sometimes you need to go outside to find out how to represent.
Yeah, and what ends up happening is you don't see, they don't follow along, like, or they start with like, oh, let's go ask that one person, and then, oh, he gave us our perspective. It's the same thing happened with diversity in organizations. With, okay, well, ask the one black guy who works in the organization, so tell us about all the black people. And so now we're kind of at that same point where a lot of organizations, again, as Zeke was saying, have this fear factor of like they don't want to step on anyone's toes, and so that they don't do that. And so whenever they decide, okay, I don't want to do anything, I'll take the safe route. So how do we get them to stop being safe?
I mean, Rob, to be honest with you, is a really great example of how to push people to not be safe. I mean, having his voice in the room, having his voice give access to people in the room and be able to open that door. That's how we keep being loud and out there, is to have people like Rob wanting to open the doors for others to get through. Sorry, Rob.
Listen, if it's not me, it's somebody else who looks and sounds like me and who's made that commitment. But, you know, behind me, I call myself the Trojan horse. When you push me in, there's a whole bunch of folks who are coming out the back of this Trojan horse and filling up the room, because in this group is, you know, folks of trans experience who are mixed races, who come with an entire, as much as I can, collective voice and representation of the entire queer community. And it is so diverse, you know, from, you know, race, religion, ability, body size, ethnicity, you name it. We are so diverse that one person cannot do their job and try to reflect the entire queer community, and two people in a campaign cannot reflect the entire queer community. We are as broad and diverse, I think, as any other community that there is. And so, there are more colors of the rainbow than just the 5 that we show. I try to get more of them in one word, because we've added now just the legit rainbow. It adds pink and blue from the transgender flag and brown and black to add for racial inclusion. So, and it'll evolve in a few years to add more colors, because there's also gender fluid colors. There's intersex colors. There's lots of different colors of the queer rainbow that aren't represented in, modern or traditional media.
And that's the thing. Keep going. Because it's interesting it's interesting that you say this, Rob, and I think it goes to the point that you are kind of a Trojan horse because they see what they think is a straight presenting white man coming through, and you look like them. And then you walk, and then you're like, hold on, wait a minute, and you open a door, and it's like everybody else comes through. But that's a unique position to be in. And in your experience, have you felt any sort of like backlash, or have you felt that companies were able to sort of embrace the fact that this is how you can actually be really inclusive by having this wide, beautiful cornucopia of great people who reflect different aspects of our community?
Laura, so great. I mean, I like to knock on the door. I like to get the appointment, the introductory phone call. I'm straight passing, I'm classic, like the way I look, and I'll get the meeting, but then I introduce, the Get Phluid team, which are all folks of trans experience. Everyone is mixed race and ethnicity, but they show up and they share their voice. And people forget about me. They forget I even existed, because this is a true, authentic voice that's being told with such grace and power and dignity. When you hear Hope Giselle speak, when you hear Devin Norell speak, when you hear these folks that I get to work with, yes, I mean, they bring it home. They do their job, which is reflecting the broader community. So. I'm lucky to work with them. I'm very fortunate every day that I get to work with them.
Awesome. And for you, Zeke, so, you're running a company. So how do you sort of make sure that your employees feel that you're embracing all aspects of them?
Well, we definitely are also a family firm. So we are always having to embrace all aspects of each other, which is wonderful. For those who are outside of the Thomas family and have now become additional members, one of the main ways that we lead with in terms of providing a healthy culture is definitely leading with both respect, trust, and love. If you lead with those three things, generally, you can avoid all conflicts and stay with just in respectful professional balance.
Beautiful.
And it's so true. I mean, I think we keep forgetting about this. It's like the empathy that we can share with each other is the first step to understanding. And it doesn't require a whole lot. It just requires some empathy. So, we're at this really unique moment, Pose just ended. I shed a tear, or several. We have Dr. Rachel Thomas, who's serving in the Biden administration. So we're seeing trans people getting really amazing levels of visibility in government and on TV. But yet we're still seeing, especially Black trans women, dying at an alarming rate. What can us as straight allies do to be better kind of vehicles of support for the community?
To be honest with you, it goes back down to voting. I mean, there are 22 states that have bills on the rolls, that have voter suppression bills on the rolls that are directly targeting trans people that would question identity and bring identity into the question of voter suppression. Not to mention all the other voter suppression tactics that are being used across the country, not just for basis on sexuality discrimination. Voting. How can straight people, cis people help? It's really what Black women have been saying forever. Vote.
You're
saved our country.
Well, you're welcome.
I am going to build on top of what Zeke said because I agree 100%. But I'm also going to say hire folks who are queer, hire folks who don't look like me, or as well as me, but hire folks who, are queer and of color, or queer and different religions, are queer and disabled, are queer and, fill in the blank, but find the folks that don't look like everybody else, that have a different point of view, hire them and bring them on your team, and you'll start to learn and grow just from an organic point of view. And then I guess put money into the community. Everybody wants to support HRC. No offense, HRC. Everybody wants to support GLAAD. No offense, GLAAD. But find the organizations that are doing the work. And there are organizations for the girls, the Black Trans Travel Fund. There are these organizations that are working hard to save lives, and that's what I'm committed to, is working hard to find those, to help those organizations where $10,000 will change their entire organization, double their operating income for the year. So that's where I see a huge opportunity. Watch Disclosure if you haven't seen it. It's a great documentary. It's about transgender experience through media and why transphobia exists because of representation through media. It's an incredible film and probably homework assignment for anyone watching this. I think it's available on Netflix.
It was so good. And I think that's the thing. It's like the more folks actually read, watch, and then act.
Listen.
And listen is the foundation of everything. It's like, listen to the people who are in this circumstance and don't think that you know everything. Step one. The better off we all will be, because that's the key here. But for companies, what do you think, right now, especially Rob, you've got these really awesome partnerships. Where do you think they have to kind of go next? This is like a foundational year. Obviously, we're the year coming out of COVID. People are going to have all kinds of thoughts and feelings about coming back into the real world. What needs to happen next?
Such a great question. And I'm working with so many great companies right now, and from consumer goods to retail and travel and financial services. And they're all just starting the process of learning, especially around gender identity and the work that goes into it. And it begins as this small conversation, but the ripple effect is massive when you start to think about language inside, policies, language external to consumers, when it comes to how do you engage with consumers, like a call center based in India. If you start to think about triggers like words like Mr. or Mrs. or sir and ma'am, that if you start to pull those out, what can you replace them with? Well, how about Laura and Zeke? How would you like to be referred to? When I get an Uber, they know exactly to call me Rob, not Robert or Mr. Smith. They know to call me Rob. So how can you put in systems that can, and by the way, Laura, do you want to be called Miss Ma'am or Missy? Nobody does. Yeah.
I am not my mother. Do not call me ma'am.
Exactly. But I think there's a way to do it so it's not singling out a group of people, but it's actually helping everybody. Folks if your name's Randy and people assume you're a man just because your name is Randy, but your gender identity is female. That if we start to substitute he and she with they and them in communication, we start to be more inclusive, and not play into also gender roles and gender expectations. I was listening to a woman speak or a person speak about the news, and she said, well, the next president who takes office, he's going to have to deal with this. And I'm like, how about you switch he with they, and then you don't fall into gender stereotypes. So there's lots of opportunities and ways to work together to get creative, to not alienate people, but to make us a better place. And all of us benefit when we start to do that.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point. And I think, even simple stuff like when someone calls you on the phone and you're on a call, so it's referring to you as ma'am or sir. It's what if you don't respond? That's just, hey, I said my name when we came on the phone. So remember that.
Well, people are doing it out of positive intent. I always remind people, they come from a place that they're trying to be respectful. This is the way they learn to be respectful, is I say sir and ma'am, and that's respectful. But it can also be incredibly, if you create dysphoria if you continue to be misgendered, or if you had a divorce, and now you're Ms., you're called Mrs. People don't do it intentionally, but can create very negative effects on a person's mental health by going through life that way. Yeah.
You're so right. How about you, Zeke? What are you thinking about this? Like, where do we go next?
I think the next place that we have to go as a society, and as corporations really moving forward, if we're going to talk about gender identity, then eventually we're going to have to start talking about color, and start removing color-coded language from society.
So this is Sophia like knew the questions. So because we talk about obviously the LGBTQIA plus 2 plus. See, I got them all.
Two spirit.
Two spirit, right?
Just say queer.
Queer works.
I know a lot of people are not comfortable with that word. A lot of older people are super uncomfortable, but it's so much more
so much
inclusive.
easier.
But
it's easier and inclusive. There you go.
It's also
covers everybody.
It's a triggering word for some people. It makes them really uncomfortable. Yeah.
It's
not me.
It can. So for Zeke, for you, obviously, you're a Black queer man. Obviously the world is just different, and being a Black man on a daily basis is just a different experience, much less a Black queer man. What are some things that families and again allies can do to be the most supportive, because we also know that this, again, it's been tough.
I think, and everybody always likes to say, that I can give, very out there, not out there answers, but general answers. So I'll try to be specific and tangible and say what somebody can do. Get to know some Black people. For real. And it might sound weird, where do Black people hang out? Go walk to the barber shop and sit in there and just meet some people. If we can get people to communicate more, if we can, really talk about that situation, and break down the patterns of the social hierarchy that we like to flock to in any situation. Now that, we got COVID and Zoom, there is no water cooler hierarchy. There's no, cool coffee cup hierarchy. There's us in the pajamas and, getting our work done. If we don't have these rules and boundaries and we can able to just be people, and get companies and people to just see each other as entities, that's what I hope, that people can just start interacting more and not being afraid of an uncomfortable conversation, but to digest it, learn from it, and have another one. Don't just stop with one. Just because you had one uncomfortable conversation doesn't mean that it's like, whew, you done. Oh yeah, baby, I did the part. I did the work. It's a long way to go.
It's so true. I think that oftentimes we get this I tried to have a conversation, but it was really heavy and it made me feel uncomfortable. And you're like, okay, dude, I've been Black my whole life. So you're hearing about this and you're uncomfortable. Try living it. Just say.
Hey, Laura, can I share a story? Can I do mine?
Yes, you can.
I remember when we launched employee resource groups at Macy's, and I was the only gay senior executive, I think, at the time, and I remember we launched them, and either it's 7 groups or something, and everyone assumed I was going to be the head overseeing, senior management overseeing the LGBTQ employee resource group. And I said, no, I think I'd like, if it's okay, I don't remember the acronym, but it was basically the Black females, and they're like, so I went and sat down. I'm like, I'm your executive sponsor, and they're like, who is this white guy who's going to be our advocate? And it was, for me, it was just putting myself into a space where I thought I could grow and I could help, through empathy and understanding. And a year and a half later, me sitting there quietly and listening, they closed the door and they said, Rob, we trust you, and we would like to tell you what racism looks like in this company. And I still got goosebumps thinking about it, because it took a year and a half for trust to be built. And it took me sitting there every month for a year and a half to listen and to build that trust, and not to talk, and just to listen. And what I heard, what kind of like was like, wow, I can't believe that happens here. And I was able to start to implement action through listening, but it takes time, but it takes an active listening and an active intention to go into a space to be there and to listen. So one of the things I'm most proud of in my life that I've learned, and I learned so much in that experience about many things. But yeah, just going. Yeah, one of my favorite saying is, you never fully learn until you surround yourself by those that are different, and starting to step outside of your circle and meet new people and learn new stories and have a deeper sense of empathy and understanding through that experience.
It's so very true. And I'm guessing, Rob, if you spend a year and a half with a bunch of Black women, you learn a lot about hair and cooking. Like, not to touch anything. Never touch Black women's hair. I'm just. I would imagine.
I learned that there's a lot of similarities between a white gay man and Black women. That's what I learned. We use the same language.
And do similar things. But yeah, it's cool because I really love that, and I'd love for you to kind of dig a little bit deeper on that, because all conversations we've been having over the last few days about, like, again, how our sort of white allies can understand what's happening to their fellow employees who are people of color, is that the fact that you sat for a year and a half and listened. Like, how does that conversation happen? Because I think oftentimes folks don't even know where to start. And yes, you walked over and said, I want to be in this ERG, but like, what steps do you have to take at that moment to sort of like say, like, actually, I'm going to be here and I want to learn? Because I think a lot of folks don't even know where to begin.
Well, I think it starts with self-reflection. Like, am I prepared to put myself into an uncomfortable situation? Am I prepared to be humble and to listen and start internally, and then externally ask for permission? I would like an opportunity to represent you, to learn with you, and ask for that. And I think it's really awkward for a lot of people to be in that position of uncomfortableness, but that's where growth happens. Whenever you step in or fall into that uncomfortable space and settle into it, is where growth happens. Yeah, that's what I would say.
It's pretty awesome. And so for you, Zeke, okay, what's one thing that you wish folks would stop doing when it comes to talking about the LGBTQ plus community, queer?
You got it, Laura.
One thing that I wish people would stop doing is, until the LGBTQIA plus community wants to act as a voting body, come together truly as a party, as a community, don't pander to us as a whole. You have to look at each social economic status. You need to look at race, and yes, you need to look at identity. Because until we as a community want to truly move forward as an entire community and not just as individual sects, don't treat us as one.
No, it's so true. It is a wide cornucopia. And Rob, what do you think is one thing we wish folks would just sort of stop doing? I know there's lots. You can pick two.
I was just thinking, I was thinking about this conversation. If I'm sitting here listening, how do we reach out and say, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't let this conversation intimidate you to not doing anything. I think what I would say is start the journey, start somewhere. And it may be kind of like a toddler trying to walk, maybe a little wobbly at first, but then you're going to get your feet a little solid and your legs more solid. Start learning and listening and expanding and growing, but start the journey, and, you're not going to get it perfect, but if you don't do anything, you're never going to go anywhere, right? You got to start somewhere. So, don't let us be intimidating. Let us actually be inspiring, hopefully, and start to realize that just like any community, we who has been marginalized and underrepresented for years, that our voice we want to be heard, we want to be represented. Visibility matters, representation matters, and we are not a cookie cutter. Just like any other community, we're not a cookie cutter. Like you can't just like fill us, put three people in a campaign and check a box. We're much more diverse than that. And but start somewhere, start moving into space, and I think, and consult the people on your team. And if you look around, you don't find the people that you want to consult, you have a problem that needs to be addressed right away, which is getting people into the room at the seat and start active, intentional recruiting and starting to think about who's not in our organization. And also the same thing, don't rely on that one person to answer all your problems for you, because they also have a job to do. So it's okay to go to external organizations who specialize in things and pay them the money that they deserve. Sometimes we look at marginalized organizations that are consultants and we don't want to pay them as much because they don't have as much experience, but they have so much truth to be told and so much that they deserve to be paid as much as that person has been doing it for the last 30 years. But find those organizations that will share the truth and bring authenticity to your campaign. And then that takes work. It takes looking and digging, but it's well worth it.
Awesome. And great advice. And last one, where do you hope we will be 2 years from now?
In 2 years, I'm hopeful, honestly, that we would have registered more people to vote. There are 2 million eligible people, LGBTQIA plus people eligible to vote right now who are not registered, who just became a voting age. We can get those people registered to vote. We can keep winning elections. So in two more years, I want 2 million people registered. Can we do that?
All right. I love it. I think we can do this. And Rob, how about you? Last word.
I know we got to wrap this up. In 2 years, I hope that more people, more companies are willing to be more progressive, and not be afraid of a backlash, and realize that young consumers are going to expect companies to make social statements around social justice and not to be afraid of it, not to be afraid of the angry people you hear from, but know that you're going to gain a lot more people that you're going to lose.
Awesome. And what a phenomenal way to end this conversation. Zeke, Rob, you guys are fantastic. I love what you had to say. And I'm going to kick it back to Adrian to close us out.
That was an amazing panel. I always feel like it's an amazing thing when I have my friends on and talking. Well, I think really what I took from it is the intersectionality of all of the communities that exist from all of the panels, and we all have this common ground of, again, wanting to feel like we belong and that we can be included. And if we really just focus on the humanity, right, of us all, and just get to those moments that we can relate and that we can connect and understand content, I think then we are in a good place. We should exercise those empathy or strengthen those empathy anchors that we have, just to make sure that we are loving and caring and just giving each other the most support and the best support that we can. So I thank you, and I'm honored that you have committed 45 minutes of your time with us today. I thank everyone who has been a part of the entire 3 days of the Can Diversity Collective's Inkwell Beach experience. We are just honored to have you commit to us, and the time and the thought leadership, the questions, the answers, contributions, everything that you did. We are clearly indebted to you. We want to thank our sponsors, Carmichael Lynch, IAB, VML-YNR, Procter & Gamble, the Dove Connection or Dove Crown Creation Coalition, the Dove Crown Coalition, Spartan Race, who supported us so long ago. So you guys, thank you so much for being a part of this journey. Laura, hopefully I didn't miss anybody, but we honor, treasure you, and we hope to see you back. Dentsu, that's who we're thinking of, Dentsu. who is a part of this support and family. So thank you guys again for seeing you. In August 10th through the 12th, we are taking the Inkwell. We're going back to Inkwell. We're going to the original space where we got our inspiration to take it to Cannes. But now we're bringing that Cannes experience back to Martha's Vineyard at Inkwell Beach. We'll be able to have that experience. So please join us. The countdown will start. This is over. So check our website out as we start moving things around and adding speakers. We hope to see you there. Zeke, I love you. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Rob, I love you. Mwah, mwah. And I want to give a shout out to my team, Laura, the two Lauras, Laura Mignott, Laura Fenton. She's shaking
After all this time.
Like, really? You guys are amazing. We could not do this without a full team. Teamwork makes the dream work. And that's all I have to say about that. So thank you guys again for joining us. We will see you in August 10th through the 12th at Martha's Vineyard. So see you then. Be safe, stay healthy.
Thanks,
and
everyone.
Tell somebody you love them today.
I love you.
I love